She's a force in the world today. It's changing lives and it's here to stay. Once you have touched it, you're never the same. Nothing to lose, new life to gain. I knew a woman of ill repute. She lived in sin, there was no dispute. She became new when she met the force. Now no more shame and no remorse. Jesus Christ, the force of the world, He is here to save us. He is here to calm our fiery soul. Jesus Christ, the force of the world, He has come to help us. He has come to heal and make us whole. I knew a man who had lost his pride. He did some things that tore him inside. But he has made an incredible switch. He found the Lord and he found his niche.
I'm Glenn Jorgensen of River Park. You've been listening to Toby Waldowski, and this is another It's Great to Be Alive. In the past 6 years, we've told many stories, personal stories of statesmen and entertainers, athletes and salesmen, young people and old, men and women, those who have faced and lived through the horrors of alcoholism and drug addiction, a Viet Cong prison camp, and other adversities. Today's story is of this young man and his wife. They met at school, married, and are pursuing their careers, their dreams. They too have faced adversity, a life-threatening adversity. Toby Waldowski had testicular cancer.
The force of the world, He has come to help us. He has come to heal and make us whole.
Toby and Barb Waldowski are musicians. They create and perform their music on Robert Schuller's Hour of Power. They've traveled over 47 states and given some 1,100 concerts. They could easily be described as a perfect couple, handsome and beautiful, intelligent and talented, happy together and successful in their careers. But theirs is also a story of fear, of dreams destroyed, of a life that could never be. Yet through the twin miracles of science and faith, that life is here. This is Toby Waldowski's story.
Barb and I have been married now about 7 years, and before we got married we talked about having children, and we decided that we wanted to have a rather large family, maybe 4 or 5 children. And so about 3.5 years ago we dreaming and hoping that our first arrival would soon come, and it didn't come very easily. I mean, we didn't get pregnant right away. We tried for a few months and we didn't get pregnant, and then the few months stretched into a year, and in August of 1979 Barb had a surgery for Stein-Leventhal syndrome, which is a disease of the ovaries, and the doctor gave us a good report and said that we would become pregnant again soon. So we were on our way again, and we still didn't get pregnant within the next few months, and another year passed, and 2 years of infertility. We loved children. We both wanted children very badly, and we just couldn't get pregnant. Well, I went to a doctor in Los Angeles, in Century City, and he checked me out, and he said that I had a varicocele. A varicocele is a varicose vein in the abdomen, and it keeps the blood from flowing properly throughout the abdomen area in the male. And so he did a surgery on me, and during the post-operative examination, he discovered that I had a lump on the testicle, which proved to be cancer. I was rushed in for surgery the next morning, and it was a seminoma malignant cancerous tumor, and they removed the testicle. In the next 5 days, I went through bone scans and CAT scans and liver scans and all of the cancer scans to make sure the cancer hadn't spread. Well, they did find a suspicious area in my lymph nodes that they weren't sure about, so then I had to go through 6 weeks of radiation therapy, and the radiation therapy was tough, but after the radiation therapy, the doctors were almost positive that they got all the cancer and that I was on my way to recovery. But the problem was that radiation therapy kills the reproductive cells in the male, and many of the doctors said we would probably never have children, that we should almost forget about ever having children by our own means. We could adopt children, etc. But the good news is that 3 weeks after my radiation therapy treatment, Barb was pregnant, and we had our little baby just a few months ago, and he's just a real joy. So we believe that God was in it. He kept us infertile long enough for the doctors to discover the cancer in me, because the doctor said if I wouldn't have come in for that infertility checkup, he wouldn't have found that cancer in time. This is a very fast-moving cancer. It moves to the lungs quickly, and the situation would have been much more critical hadn't I come in for that infertility check. So we believe that God guided us to the doctor through the infertility. Once God got the cancer out of my body, then he blessed us with our little baby.
And the baby got off to quite a start, Toby. I recall watching the Hour of Power and the baptism of this baby, which was so meaningful to anyone who knew anything about your story. And we have the tape of that event, and just to illustrate how from darkness can come light, we'd like to share this with the people who will be watching this show. So here's Toby and Barb Waldowski and their child being baptized at the Garden Grove Community Church in California.
Jesse, the baptize you in the name of the Father, and in the name of Christ, the Savior, in the name of the Holy Spirit. Pray, God, from whom blessings flow. Oh God, thank you for the children. What hope we have for the future. They are little miracles. You have a plan for us, and we lift up in prayer that you will guide their steps and help them to grow up to be beautiful Christians, sharing the faith of the future. We ask this prayer in the name of our Lord. Amen.
So radiant and pure, how innocent he comes, so helpless and frail, dependent on us to show him the way. We will show him Jesus, teach his perfect plan. On the rock of righteousness, he will surely stand. As we come before you, Lord, we sing again. Guide us as we raise our child, keep us in your care. He will always be our child, as he looks, God, to you. Mold him in your goodness, faithful, kind, and true. Make him strong enough to meet the trials life will bring, and grave in his mind he's a child of the King. Show him Jesus, teach his perfect plan. Just as we raise our child, keep us in your care. He's our little one, our boy. We praise you, oh God. Our hearts burst with joy for your gift of love.
We appreciate your sharing a very personal event, although I guess when you get on national television, why it isn't all that personal anymore. But so you went from a career development that was going well and suddenly got the bad news, and then out of that came good things, resulting in a assumption of your career. You never really did let up.
No,
did
we
you?
didn't. We kept going right through all the radiation therapy, and so in fact some of our best months, in our most meaningful months in our whole career, were during that time, because the story was so fresh and people were seeing that God really was working in our lives.
Toby, I'm very excited. First of all, of course, I know that there are many comparisons between your cancer and the cancer of alcoholism, which is our primary function at River Park, is treating that. But the similarities in the emotional trauma, in the things that you have to do if you're going to recover and live meaningful lives, there's some real parallels, and I would like to explore some of those parallels and some of the things that you're faced with when the news comes or prior to it. You really didn't have a lot of advance warning because there are warning signals for people that are developing cancer, but you didn't have too many of those.
No.
What was your reaction when the doctor told you that you had cancer?
Well, it was just total shock. It's like, you're just hit with a bombshell, and immediately after it happened, I just felt my body almost just moving into a new gear. I'd never experienced myself in this energy potential before. I felt that I was in the midst of a crisis, but at the same time I felt very strong. We were talking before about how we tend to deny things when they first happen, and I can identify with that in my cancer. So often you want to say it's not there, it's not happening to me, and I think it's the same way with alcoholism.
Absolutely.
You want to shuck it off and say it's not happening to me, I don't really have a problem, and I know I went through a period of my life with this cancer when I wanted to deny that it was real, especially after the surgery, when the doctor had said that he thought he got it all through surgery, and then the doctor said, well, you have to go through some radiation therapy, and I said, well, do I really need it? Is it really important? And I wanted to put it off, and I wanted to get going with my career. I wanted the bad news to end, but the doctor said, you have to face up to your problem. You have to realize that you have to take care of this before you can do anything else in your life. You have to get rid of that cancer in your body, whether it be alcoholism, whether it be a seminoma, tumor. You have to take care of that before you can go on creatively with the rest of your life, or else it's going to ultimately destroy you, and you won't have a singing career, you won't have a family life, or you won't have a good business until you take care of that problem. Give that first priority, let us take care of that, and then go on with your life.
There's just so often the denial in alcoholism or the minimizing. There's got to be an easier way than going all out to get the help that's available and make the recovery. Likewise, you shared a bit about in post-recovery or ongoing recovery, where the alcoholic maybe gets stopped and figures that now he can handle it, he doesn't have to do anything more. What did you have to do after? What are you doing right now to maintain this freedom that you've got now?
Right. Every 3 months I have to go through a series of tests. They take blood from my body. They test it for protein analysis. I go through chest x-rays periodically. I'm scheduled to go through a CAT scan now in a few weeks. And I have to keep up to make sure that, just routine post-operative examinations. And oftentimes I find myself, when I'm coming upon these post-operative examinations, to say, well, I'm sailing along and I'm cured and I'm doing great, and I tend to put it off. But again, it's always facing up to the fact that one time I had cancer, and I realize that I have to keep up with it to make sure that it doesn't come back again. And I think perfect parallel with the alcoholic. Once they've been through a treatment center and they've got it licked, they think they still have to keep going back and keep realizing that they were an alcoholic once and it could come back again, and they need the strength of their peers, they need the strength of other people to help them through the problem, just like I need the doctors to keep watch on my body to make sure that the cancer does not come back.
I think it's very close, Toby. I think I would have to imagine that as the alcoholic feels and the family people around them feel, you no doubt experienced some feelings of anger or resentment.
Fear.
Why anger?
Well, I think anger actually comes out of fear. When you become fearful and you're so frightened you're backed in a corner, you respond just like an animal. You strike out. I think the deepest need or the deepest thing that we feel when we're going through a hard time is fear. Fear of uncertainty.
Acceptance of the reality. We did a program with Charlie Plum, who had been a prisoner of the Viet Cong for 6.5 years, and he was describing when they finally shot his plane down, and he's floating down in this parachute. And down below are the enemy shooting at him, and up above it all is just this little parachute. And he said, at that time, if you don't have a higher power,
Exactly.
I mean, you've had it.
Exactly.
And I think this is very true with the alcoholic. Most of us tried all kinds of ways to get through this thing, you know, through trying to go on the wagon, through willpower type things.
Exactly.
Most of us discovered that until we accepted the reality of our alcoholism and in effect gave up to win. When you give up, you begin to feel some serenity and you kind of let go, and then you begin to win. Would that be similar?
When you face a problem like that, you do it alone. My wife was with me, but she doesn't know what I'm going through, and she doesn't know what I'm feeling, and I had people around me surrounding me with their prayers and so on, but I was going through it alone, basically, and I had to have that higher power, which really gave me a deep sense of peace throughout the whole experience. And I can look back now and say that the whole experience was a very positive experience, because I learned so much about life. I learned about setting priorities and getting my priorities in order in my life, and I learned that material things are not really of value when you come down to the bottom line, etc. It was just a very learning experience, and it certainly enhanced my ability to relate in our concerts to other people who have gone through similar affliction.
I recall in a conversation with Dr. Schuler, he works with many troubled people. What did he see as the common denominator? And he pointed out, number one, acknowledgement. You have to recognize that you have whatever the problem of life is, and most people, you know, the scars of life are on the souls of every human being.
Absolutely.
Acknowledging it, accepting it, accepting it, that's it, and then taking action, doing something, and they're all important. I know that you were very capable, very talented before all of this. I know also that you have gained from it. You've done, you have two new records out. You have a song there that you opened when we opened the show.
Force of the World.
Force of the World, which is a very moving, inspiring song. And then you've done another one that I suspect comes out of much of your personal experience.
Exactly.
Toby, sing it for us.
Bobby was a tough guy. He broke most all the rules. Proud of his fighting, he was a legend at school. His parents died when he was just a little baby boy, but Grandma kept him as her own. He was her pride and joy. Grandma tried to raise the boy in a God-fearing home, a prayer before each meal, even though he groaned. Every morning as she placed the lunchbox by his side, she'd give him words to live by and hope they'd be his guide. She told him, walk with the Lord, take hold of his hand, learn the joy of having a friend who really cares. Walk with the Lord, take heed to his command, feel the strength that comes through answered prayer. Through the years of high school, Bobby seemed confused. He liked it with the in-crowd. On weekends they would cruise. As his pals grew older, their fun turned to crime. They'd rob the homes of strangers and wound up doing time. die. He met a friend named Jesus who changed his life inside. Bobby's really home now with a family of his own. He teaches them the Bible and makes it clearly known. He tells them, walk with the Lord, take hold of his hand, learn the joy of having a friend who really cares. Walk with the Lord, take heed to his command, feel the strength that comes through answered prayer. You gotta walk with the Lord, take hold of his hand, learn the joy of having a friend who really cares. Walk with the Lord, take heed to his command, feel the strength, oh what a power, feel the strength that comes through answered prayer.
Thank you, Toby, for that. People that are going to be listening are going to have some questions, or ought to have, anyway. Now, out of this experience that you've had, you've learned things about cancer and its how to recognize it and what to do. To the people that are watching, what are some words of advice that you might have for, say, that young fellow, 25 years old? What should he be looking for? It can happen.
Right. Well, on a practical, first of all, on a very basic and practical standpoint, testicular cancer, the kind that I had, is the second leading killer among young men between the ages of 20 and 30. And I know after it was discovered in my body, many of my friends in California felt similar lumps on their testicle, and they went in for checkups, and most of the time, you know, it turns out to be nothing, maybe just an injury or something when they were younger, but it's a very easy process to detect. It's just self-examination, much like the breast cancer situation in women. It's just self-examination. You can feel if there's an abnormal lump or abnormal hard point or hard mass on the testicle, and I would suggest that if someone feels that they should be checked out, because this type of cancer is very, very curable. The cure rate is in the 80th percentile if it's found in the infant stage, and so it's the type of cancer that does move quickly, but if you catch it at an early stage, it's very easy to win. So I would suggest that on a practical basis.
Self-examination, see a physician.
Right. Right.
Toby, we recognize that you're an example of that it doesn't have to be the end of the world, and,
Exactly.
and great things can come from it. The alcoholic, the earlier detected, again, the better off they are, because any problem, the earlier you start dealing with it, the better. Again, the need to come to grips with it. And then what this show basically is all about is first of all, letting people know whatever their adversity, and primarily alcoholism, that there is hope, that is something you can deal with. And then the bottom line being that life can be good. That even though we got our troubles, and I don't know of anyone who, even though they may be well recovering from cancer, from alcoholism, that doesn't have some dark moments, but basically that life is very good. From your experience that you've gone through now, I know that we grow out of our adversities. We don't grow out of smooth times. Would you agree with that?
Definitely, definitely. I know for a fact that I've never felt stronger in my spiritual life, that I've never felt closer to God in an extended period of time as the 6 weeks that I was going through the radiation therapy and through the cancer. It was just a very learning experience, a very moving experience. I learned so many things about what's really important in life, about communication, about the nature of God, and there's been no doubt at all that our concerts have become much more meaningful for people since this happened. I mean, even from a career standpoint, I couldn't have done anything in my life that could have possibly guided us and made us more effective communicators in going through this experience. And I know you can certainly relate with this. You know, the time that you spent in your life as an alcoholic and what you learned has just helped you launch this great work that you're doing here. We learn through our adversity. God's perception of a problem is not the same as the human perception. God sees in advance. God sees beyond what we see. When we get into a period of adversity in our lives, we tend to think that it's the end of the world, but God sees beyond, and if we keep our faith and keep our trust, He pulls us through, and ultimately all things work together for good, which is just super exciting.
It is exciting. It is out of God writes straight with crooked lines, and broken to be made more beautiful
Exactly.
is a phrase that fits. Toby, you illustrate that. First of all, we in the South Dakotans are very proud of you and Barb for the tremendous success that you've made of your lives and the good work that you're doing. You've proven that you can be afflicted with a very devastating illness, but that by facing it and dealing with it, and with faith and good medical attention, it can be dealt with, just as an alcoholic or their family members or a drug dependent. That's the main message, that whatever the affliction, there is hope and there is help. And the important thing is not to sit back and say, well, I'm the only one that has this, or I'm the only one it's happening to. Well, there's nothing I can do, because you can do something. And anyone seeing you would have to be inspired that they too can make recovery, and that they can be a good influence in life as you and Barb are. And I thank you very much for your generosity in joining us.
Thank you. My pleasure. I would just like to say, if I could, that being from South Dakota is the greatest place to be from.
Great, great. Thank you, Toby. Very few of us get through life without facing our share of problems. Cancer and other deadly diseases, accidents, the birth of a retarded child, alcoholism, other addictions. We're all affected, directly as parents, brothers, sisters, indirectly through more distant relatives, friends, or co-workers. It's from these adversities that we grow, we learn, and we become stronger. But we are seldom able to do it alone. We need the help and understanding of family and friends. We need the strength of a higher power, the knowledge of teachers and physicians, and the wisdom of those who have walked the same path before us. There's always hope and help. To help you learn more about the many forms of cancer, contact the American Cancer Society. To help you learn more about the illness of alcoholism, there is River Park of South Dakota.